I'm your host, Sean Blackman, here with Jackie Lukman.
Hey, y'all.
And we are your number one source for struggle, socialism, and soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it is Friday, June 14th, 2024, here in Washington, D.C. It is a warm day, though it is a little bit gray here in the district. So how are you feeling, Jackie?
I'm feeling as hot as it really is. It's warm in DC is always translated to people who lived here for a long time as hot and sticky. So anything over 80 degrees in DC with full sun and no breeze and no rain is hot and sticky, and that's what it is in Chocolate City today.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's funny. Moving up here from Florida, I was expecting like drastic weather changes. And on the one hand, I think the major difference for me is the fact that there are actually distinct seasons here in DC that you can tell.
Right.
And
in Florida, not much.
No, not really. And I'm from the northernmost part of the state, and still it's basically just kind of like hot and then not really hot.
So even in the north, it's like swamp like every day. Wow.
Yeah. And to me, the heat here in DC and the heat in Florida is actually similar for just that reason, because it has that humility. I was talking with someone from matter of fact, they came up to DC from Tucson to come to the People's Red Line demonstrations last week, and they were sort of telling me the difference in heat and about how it could be like a higher temperature in Tucson, but it would feel hotter here in DC because, over there in Arizona, they have dry heat. They don't really have that humidity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that really makes all the difference. When that humidity is on, it can feel like you feel like you're sitting in a crock pot.
Well, you know what happened, when our grandparents engaged in the Great Migration, we didn't just bring our culture with us from the South. We also brought our food, right? Because I don't care where you go in a major city on the Eastern Seaboard, and even on the on the West Coast, you get a neighborhood full of Black folks. You got soul food, and that's everywhere in this country. But we also brought that swamp heat that for some reason, I don't know why we like it, but I think we do. And it's not summer without a good sweat in the garden and outside and sitting out at night, watching lightning bugs, which even with the heat, it's been nice to see the lightning bugs come back and the dragonflies this year. So yeah, we had to bring a little bit of that climate comfort, I guess, that we're comfortable with in the South, just so we could feel at home, make it home up here, I guess. But we can send it back anytime. That would be cool.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Just last night, actually, I was sitting at a park near my apartment here in DC. And there were, lightning bugs flying all around. It was really nice to watch. I hadn't really seen that in a little while. There's something sort of oddly comforting about it in a way. Yeah. It is pretty nice. I mean, it's just sort of, nature's luminescence, if you will. And I want to go ahead and bring in our guest for this hour, Jackie. I want to bring up Richard Becker of the Answer Coalition, which means Act Now to Stop War and End Racism. Richard, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
Hey, glad to have you.
Absolutely. And Richard, there's been a very interesting development in the world of Israeli politics as Benny Gantz recently left the Netanyahu government, and in the few days since has been critical of Netanyahu's stance on Israel's ongoing genocide against Gaza. I was just looking at a piece in the Times of Israel today, and it quoted Gantz in an interview with Channel 12 he was asked if the demand of a permanent ceasefire was something that he'd be willing to consider. And he said, quote, "I want the hostages to return home. If there is a change in the fighting and our hostages are returned and we do what needs to be done in the Gaza Strip in a year or in 2 years, that's not an issue." But before we get sort of too deep into what Gantz is actually saying here, Richard, I was hoping you could help us understand just who he is. Who is Benny Gantz? What was his role in the Netanyahu government? And why do you think he's leaving the government now?
Well, Benny Gantz has a long history of killing Arab people, Lebanese people, Palestinian people, war after war after war after intervention, invasions. That's his career, and it goes back, as anyone can see. You can just look him up on Wikipedia and see that it's been war after war after war, and he is responsible for some of the most heinous massacres that have taken place in the past. He was the military commander when the invasion of Lebanon took place, when he was a young soldier, not quite a commander yet, but a young soldier. The invasion and occupation of Lebanon, and then the invasion of Lebanon he participated in 1982, when Israel took over the country for 18 years until they were driven out by the Lebanese resistance. I personally have been to the torture chambers in southern Lebanon, where Israel and its Lebanese traitorous ally tortured so many fighters, so many people in the time, that 18 years. And then you come up to 2008, and he's one of the top commanders for Operation Cast Lead, as it was called. And that took place between the presidencies, and very deliberately so, between the presidencies of Bush and Obama, when there was this kind of the interregnum period there. Netanyahu, Gantz, and others used that time period to launch a big war against Gaza, one of the biggest before now. And then the biggest before now, before the invasion and genocide that's going on, was in 2014. And he was the top commander for what was called Operation, it wasn't Cast Lead, it was Protective Wall. So this is who Gantz is. And it continued in 2021 in the war against Gaza that took place, the assault on Gaza. We shouldn't really call them wars, because Gaza has no anti-aircraft defenses, and the repeated bombing, the mass murder that's taken place. So that's Gantz. That's Gantz's career from 1977. So that's 46 years or 45 years of a career as really the director of murder and genocide against the Palestinian people. And, I think that he became one of the leaders of the opposition after he left the military, and together with Lapid, and they were brought into the government after October 7th of 2023 by Netanyahu to give a cover, to make it look, the war cabinet, as it was called. It was a body that was different than the government itself. This was what the motivation for this was, to make it appear to be a more progressive government than it was. Although none of these people are progressive at all, but also to reunite the people in Israel, the masses of people in Israel, who are all too willing to be united for the most part in support of the genocide against Gaza.
Now, Richard, this is happening, Benny Gantz resigning from the war cabinet at a time when there are protests in Israel against Netanyahu. And a lot of people in this country don't understand those protests. And those protests are a part of, I think, what Gantz is claiming is his reason for stepping down from the war cabinet, that Netanyahu is not paying enough attention to negotiating with Hamas to return the, I'm not going to call them hostages, I'm calling them POWs, because that's what they are. They weren't civilians. But there is also the fact that Gantz said something that Sean mentioned that means something very important, that is a complete departure from, this desire to push Netanyahu to make peace with, well, at least to negotiate with Hamas to return the POWs to Israel. And of course, he doesn't say anything about the Palestinian prisoners of war, the Palestinian political prisoners, the thousands of them, the women and the children that Israel is holding, and who they also just rearrested a bunch of Palestinians over the past few months as they were at the same time slaughtering people. So what is the situation for Netanyahu now, particularly that Gantz has stepped down and he is openly opposing Netanyahu on this one issue of at least negotiating with Hamas? But then when he says that we have to work on getting the hostages back, but if that means we have to wait until a year or two to do what we need to do in Gaza, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a very, very important point. That what he means by that is clearly what Netanyahu is saying about eliminating Hamas from Gaza. That's what Netanyahu has said over and over again, and that's what Gantz also means. He didn't want to quite say it the same way as Netanyahu, but he means the same thing. And so, what the intention of the whole top leadership, the opposition, as well as the Netanyahu-led government and the fascist parties of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, they are all united in wanting to turn Gaza into a zone that's either completely devoid of Palestinians, where the Palestinians have been driven out, or where the Palestinians have been reduced so that they are really an enslaved people and have no control over Gaza. We heard, and I think we might have talked about it before, that the Trump son-in-law talked about turning Gaza into a nice waterfront property. And it's not just him, it's the fascist parties, which can bring down the government at any time and are closely allied with Netanyahu. They are saying the same thing, that and openly calling for the driving out of the Palestinians altogether from Gaza, as well as the West Bank. So, this is, we have a slightly different rhetoric that comes from Gantz and Lapid and the fascists and Netanyahu, but they all mean the same thing. They all mean exactly the same thing. And and at the same time, the opposition inside Israel is continuing to oppose the Netanyahu government for their own reasons, but are very much in support of the genocide that's going on in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Richard, I appreciate you raising the fact that the top leadership in all of these different parties within the Israeli government all want the same thing, regardless of whatever slight changes in rhetoric we may see. Because I noticed that in U.S. corporate media, Benny Gantz is described as a, quote, centrist. Now, I don't know how much of a centrist you can be while supporting genocide, but it's like they're trying to paint this thing like Gantz leaving the government like that was because of some, issue with his conscience or something.
Right.
When in reality,
or whatever.
Yeah. When in reality, the issue just seems kind of one of a political expediency. And Richard, I'm curious if you think that this evidences some kind of tension within the Israeli government, because I feel like that aspect of things, and really the whole question of like how Israel's ongoing genocide against Gaza is impacting internal politics in Israel, I feel like that aspect of things sort of gets a short shrift. And I don't know how much you really know about some of the different views and different sort of ideas or notions that different factions within the Israeli government may have. I don't know how much we know about that, but I mean, from your perspective, what impact, if any, do you think that this ongoing genocide is having on that level?
Well, there is in the government with a few seats in the Knesset. I think it was 5 seats, but I might be incorrect about that. But a small number of the 120 seats. There are the Arab parties and the Communist Party, who are calling for an end to the assault on Gaza. So we should say that they are there, but they represent a very, very small minority. The big religious parties, the fascist parties, the Likud party, the so-called National Unity Party, they're all united and have an overwhelming majority in the government, united in wanting to really to drive out the Palestinians from Gaza, drive them out from the West Bank. I think what you get from the Gantz and why Gantz withdrew from at this time is what he says is that there's no plan for what happens afterwards, and that is true. That what at the present time what Netanyahu and his closest allies want, and what Netanyahu intends, is to continue the genocide and to try to, as he said just in the last couple of days again, to drive out and to destroy Hamas. And he doesn't really mean just Hamas. He means to destroy the Palestinian resistance, which is made up of numerous parties, of which the Hamas is the largest. But to destroy all of them and reduce the, as you said before, the Palestinian population either to the status of enslaved people or gone altogether. So we have that I think that's the reality of what we're seeing. And, I think that Gantz knows, and some of them know, that they can't do that. They cannot succeed in the full destruction of the Palestinian resistance and the Palestinian people. So they have to come up with a neo-colonial type plan. He certainly doesn't want anything that would be good for the Palestinians, but I think that the Gantz and the people who are with Gantz believe that there has to be some kind of a proposal put forward for a solution, as bad as that might be. But at the same time, Netanyahu wants to just continue. He wants to continue the war. The war is good for him. The war protects him. It protects him on a personal basis, but more importantly, from his point of view, it advances the cause of driving out the Palestinian population, his real cause.
Mm. And Richard, of course, Hamas is a big part of this this particular issue with Gantz, because of course Hamas sort of is the focus, or they're making Hamas the focus, which has been the case since this all I won't say began, because it didn't begin, since Al-Aqsa flood, which was Palestinian people breaking out of their open air prison, which they have a legal right to do and a moral right to do. But there is a lot of pressure in the U.S. on progressives, on leftists, on socialists, on people who are against genocide, people who are standing up for Palestinians, to condemn Hamas. But at the same time, we are now seeing more stories coming out of some of the POWs who have been released, or either through the Israeli efforts or because Hamas released them. And they're saying, imagine this, Richard, they're saying nice things about Hamas. They're saying things like one hostage was released and he said they baked him a birthday cake while he was in with Hamas. Another was just released and said to the Israeli government, you have to negotiate with Hamas. They are trying to get their people back, and that's the only way the other Israelis are coming home. So what is your take on how we should be contextualizing Hamas as the situation in Israel? Israel's government is in disarray, even though they're still on the same page as far as genocide and ethnic cleansing is concerned. But at the same time, they've seemed to have sown enough of a kind of division and chaos in this country where we're not clear on who the victims and who the aggressors are here. And we're not sure what to do or what to say about Hamas.
Well, you know, one thing that's very striking is that the condition of the hostages or POWs, as you said, they were determined and announced to be medically in very good condition, and well fed and taken care of and so forth. And what a contrast with the conditions in the Israeli prisons now, with 10,000 Palestinians. And, you know, the worst fascist element in the government, Ben Gvir, is in charge of the prisons now. And he's instituted a policy of kind of continual torture and abuse, different than it was before, worse, even worse than it was before. Oh, wow. And so you have that going on. And so you have this like huge number, 10,000 Palestinian political prisoners today, a small number, I think 120 who are still considered or called the hostages that are being held by Hamas, the Israelis who are being held. But the conditions are so radically different from what we've just been able to see in the last couple of weeks. And yet there's no discussion about in the mainstream media, or, there's all this talk about hostages from Biden and from Blinken and from others in the government, but no mention. They don't even mention the Palestinians who are really suffering under this fascist prison regime. We need to bring that up, but we need to show the reality of what's happening there, because the mainstream media and the politicians are definitely not going to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And Richard, we spoke a little bit about how this all is resonating and reverberating through Israeli internal politics, and also want to discuss similar trends here in the United States and how all of this is impacting internal politics here in this country. Now, according to reports, Benjamin Netanyahu is actually set to appear before U.S. Congress on July 24th. And this is coming at a time when the Joe Biden administration is making these kind of token moves to, pretend like, that the administration cares about Palestinians, or that they actually want to challenge or hold the Netanyahu government accountable for its crimes in Rafah or so on. Although I think all of that proves to be a farce. I mean, of course, Joe Biden said that Rafah was a red line, but that red line was crossed by Israel and nothing happened. Mm-hmm. And there was a real red line that happened about a week ago here that we can talk about a little later. But I mean, what do you make? What message do you think it sends that about 8 months, after 8 months of an active genocide that's been broadcast to the whole earth, what message do you think it sends that Benjamin Netanyahu will come to the U.S., likely receive a standing ovation from both of the ruling parties, although we're told one of them is the lesser evil, but they seem to be on the same page with genocide. But what do you think this sort of means in this moment, and how do you think it reflects on politics here in the U.S.?
Well, I think what it demonstrates again is the appalling character of the U.S. government. Our so-called representatives are supporters of genocide. Maybe not every single one of them. There's a few who aren't, like Rashida Tlaib from Michigan and some others, but it's a handful. I mean, the we should remember that back at the just shortly after the Al-Aqsa flood, shortly after October 7th, there was a vote in the House of Representatives, 412-9, that Israel's not an apartheid state. I mean, everybody knows that Israel's an apartheid state. Who pays any attention to this? I mean, you can't really deny it. There's dozens now of Palestinian, Israeli, international, U.S. human rights organizations who have written long, detailed, and published long, detailed reports showing how, in so many hundreds and thousands of ways, it's an apartheid state, and so they can vote that way. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like, okay, they can vote that the Earth is the center of the universe. If they can vote that Israel is not an apartheid state, it makes just as much sense. It's just as much validity. But that's who they are. That's who they are, and the top leaders in the U.S., the real policymakers, are supporters of the state of Israel because they see Israel as being a vital cog in the U.S. global war machine, part of the war machine that makes possible the U.S. strategy of global domination. So you have them, and then you have the others who get some money from AIPAC or, through other channels that are pro-Israel, and so we can never overestimate the willingness of our so-called representatives to follow whoever will wave money in front of them. That's a despicable group.
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, it's very hard to take people who are still pushing the, vote blue no matter who, even though they're not saying that now, because I think people realize the ridiculousness of that phrase, vote blue no matter who, but they might as well still say it because the blue in question is a genocidaire now. Aside from being Jim Crow Joe and all of the other horrible things that he already was before now, but now he has the title of genocidaire. And Richard, how do you see the ability for leftists writ large to challenge just the media narrative of, Israel still being the victim and Hamas just being this outsized evil entity, like this new evil thing that no one has ever seen before, without ever, talking about any of the truth of what's going on at a time when, because of the relationship between the U.S. and Israel, the U.S. is now, well, not now, but once again, cracking down on dissent, I think in a way that a lot of people have never seen before. I don't think we've been in a period of repression of the media, of journalists, of students, of college students, high school students, the way and faculty, the way we've seen today. So do you think this latest round of domestic repression in service to imperialism and neocolonialism in the Middle East through Israel is a moment where a spark can be lit that we all, touch our torches to and run toward the struggle for liberation? Or do you see it as being a moment where people are becoming more afraid now because now they see just how their government really does not care about them?
Well, I think that the repression that's going on is evidence that this movement is having an impact. I don't think we'd be seeing it. It's true what you say, that I don't think there's been repression like this on this scale in many, many years, but there haven't been actions like we're seeing right now in so many areas, at least since the George Floyd protest. And these are more prolonged, more the people are continuing with the protests, with the demonstrations. There would not be the kind of reaction from the government, from the college presidents, from the police, from the ruling class, and all of its tentacles, if this was not having an impact. 2 weeks ago in Detroit, there were 3,500 people who gathered on very short notice. I mean, usually a conference like that is planned for 6 months or a year ahead of time. And this was a conference that was planned and carried out in a couple of months. And it showed the determination of people from all over the country to make whatever sacrifices they had to come to this conference. It was really, I think, very notable. And I think it shows that there's a core of a movement, and certainly that's not the whole core, but that there's a core of this movement that is not about to give up, is not about to throw in the towel, is going to stand up to the repression and has been standing up to the repression and will continue. And that's the real hope. That movement is the real hope for the Palestinian people, the movement around the world in solidarity along with the Palestinian resistance. And it's the real hope for our future here too, not just in relation to Palestine, but I think the whole, the imperialist state that we are fighting against, the capitalist imperialist state, and is wreaking destruction in Palestine and all over the world.
Yeah, and speaking of the movement, Richard, on June 8th, about 100,000 people descended on Washington, D.C. to form the People's Red Line. The movement basically made the decision that since Joe Biden's red line with Rafah was a lie, then the people would make a real one. So people showed up in D.C. wearing red and surrounded the White House, holding a literal red line. To sort of show to basically show, how the movement is sort of the real sort of voice of conscience and the real sort of voice of peace in this country. And to also make the statement that if Biden is going to lie about the red line, then we have to actually be it, that there actually has to be a fight to end the genocide against Palestine. And it's going to come from the masses. It's not going to come from the government of the country that is funding and facilitating the genocide. And so the fact that, and I know that on the West Coast where you're based, Richard, you all also had some large demonstrations around the same thing. And so we're talking about 8 months on from October 7th. I mean, we're coming up, it'll be a year before we know it. And yet and still, people are coming out en masse to basically declare that they're going to fight for a free Palestine. And like you say, this repression has not worked. The lies and propaganda from the corporate media has not worked. The lies and propaganda from the White House and the Biden administration have not worked. And so sort of moving forward, Richard, in terms of the role of the movement, how do you see that as important as things continue to develop here and we continue to see these sort of different dynamics unfolding and a lot of these different cracks happening in different, elements within Israeli and American politics?
Well, it's really something that demonstration that took place in Washington happened 2 weeks after the conference in in Detroit. That's a very, very short time for the conference to be organized. Very, very short time for another major demonstration to take place, to be organized. People have to get buses, they have to arrange transportation, it's costly and all that. And so the fact that, I think both the Detroit conference and the Red Line demonstration in Washington show that the movement is continuing and it is going to continue. One of the other things that came out of the conference in Detroit was a call originated by the Palestinian youth movement that I think everyone is going to join in. All the movement is going to join in, and that's a boycott of Maersk, the logistics and shipping company, which is the largest transporter of weapons to Israel of any shipping line. So, and Maersk has offices all over the country and all over the world. So it's a very big organization in terms of providing what the Israeli military is using to carry out the genocide. So I think it's very encouraging, and I think the struggle will continue.
Yeah, it is really encouraging to you know, that, and I think that's the plus or the benefit of living in Washington, D.C. in moments like this, or at least in big cities, because you do get to see mass mobilizations of people, and it does make you feel like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm not the only one who's angry about this, you know, because people all the time, we talk to people who come up to us at these demonstrations or when we have our events, Richard, and you know, people always say, particularly now, I see what the police have done to the students. I saw what the police did to Black folks in 2020. And I'm scared. I don't want to be caught out like that. And we're like, well, yeah, we understand, but fear comes with it. That's just a part of it. It is a part of it, and you have to fight for something. You have to stand for something, or else you'll fall for anything. And we do have to give people that hope that whatever little bit they can do will mean something, right?
You accidentally muted yourself, Jackie.
Oh, did I? See, that's what happens when I get all excited. I do stuff that I don't mean. So we do have to give people hope that even the little bit that they do is not really a little bit. Cumulatively, it's an enormous effort. But then people, Richard, are still left with, okay, our government, the United States, this is what people say, because you know I don't call those people my government. They're not my government. But people will inevitably say our government is not listening to us. So now what do we do? So that's the question, Richard. What happens after all of the demonstrations? What happens after the boycotts and the genocide is still going on? The ethnic cleansing is still going on. What's next? I think people want to know.
Well, part of it, I think, just addressed is the Maersk campaign. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think in the larger picture is that I think we all need to understand, and I think many do, but how important this movement is, how important it is to keep this movement alive and keep it growing. It's hard to stop an imperialist war or an imperialist intervention. You know, I went to the first massive anti-Vietnam War demonstration on April 15th, 1967 in New York City. And it took 6 more years before the last U.S. troops were out of Vietnam, and 8 more years before the war ended altogether. Mm-hmm. And so you could say, well, then it doesn't really mean it. No, it meant a lot that the protests, the mass demonstrations, all kinds of action that opposed the war, draft resistance, all of that took place. It tied the hands of the U.S. As horrible as what they did to Vietnam was, they would have done even more horrible things if there hadn't been a mass movement. And I think that, you know, we're going to see a continuation of this movement. And as I said, I think if people really assess this movement for what it is, the real hope for the future, that we will understand also that there will be sacrifices, there will be struggles, there will be difficulties, but we have to keep going. Yeah,
I mean, you know, in reality, like we call it struggle for a reason, right? Like if it was easy, we wouldn't call it struggle. Mm-hmm. Right. Is what I like to say. And so I think without question, I mean, history shows that this is just an aspect of it in terms of how it all plays out. But I wanted to talk a little more, if we could, Richard, about how this is sort of impacting internal politics here in the U.S. And the reason I bring this back up is because, you know, we're in an election year here in the U.S. Of course, it doesn't feel like it, which I think may tell us something in and of itself. But I was looking back at this survey that the Pew Research Center did in March of this year, and they found that roughly a quarter of Americans surveyed, about 26%, had an unfavorable view of both Joe Biden and Donald Trump as presidential candidates. And interestingly, when you break that down amongst age groups, about 4 in 10 adults aged 18 to 29, which is about 41%, have that same unfavorable opinion. It's 41% of these young people. And I feel like, you know, if you're in any kind of contact with young people, certainly if you're in the movement, then that seems to track. But this would seem to fly in the face of the whole lesser evil argument that we hear so much here in the United States. And in this case, it's this narrative of, well, whatever the issues may be with Joe Biden, we have to stop Donald Trump from being president at all costs because we have to protect democracy, or, you know, it's a number of things that people will say. Of course, I feel like people don't acknowledge how much of Trump's platform and program that Biden maintained.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see how, political sentiments are trending here in the U.S., even in an election year, and the very real potential for a far-right figure like a Donald Trump to become president, and the fact that both parties support Israel, they both support a genocide against the Palestinians. I mean, what significance do you think this has within the context of this Palestine issue?
Well, certainly the numbers of people who are disenchanted with the system and with the candidates, I'm kind of surprised that the numbers aren't even higher than 41% for 18 to 24 and 26% overall. I think there's, you know, a great deal of dissatisfaction. There's going to be a huge campaign by the Democrats to try to get people to vote for Biden, despite, you know, how they're feeling now about him and so forth. That's going to happen. They're going to spend a huge amount of money in doing that. Right now, Trump is looking like, you know, there's a very good chance that he's going to win again, and he's a horrific character as well.
Mm-hmm.
So really the most meaningful thing I think that would come out of the election would be votes for third-party candidates, and particularly socialist candidates. And that would mean something. That would really mean something. Socialism has come back into the discourse, the political discourse in the United States. But the socialist movement needs to get stronger. And, you know, I'm voting for Claudia de la Cruz and Karina Garcia for president and vice president. They're the candidates of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. And also where I am here in California, they will also be on the ballot in California as the candidates of the Peace and Freedom Party. And they will be on the ballot in other states as well as PSL candidates and as independent candidates. In South Carolina as the Working People's Party.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is an opportunity for people. They have been, Claudia and Karina have been unwavering in their solidarity with the Palestinian people, with the Palestinian resistance. And I think a vote for them is the most significant thing that people can do in this year's election.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I do think that that's where my vote is going to go as well. So there you go, folks. You've heard it, because people have asked me for the past couple of weeks. People have been, every time they've seen me, Jackie, who are you voting for? Are you going to vote? And normally I don't tell anybody anything, but it's been pretty intense this year. So I figured I'd just go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. I'm voting for the socialists because guess what? I'm a socialist, so that makes sense to me. But the idea, Richard, that we have a third party option, and third party options are viable. They are part of the political history of this country. People don't know that third parties were a thing. I mean, like a real thing in the political history of this country. And so the demonization of third parties now is of course a complete the result of the demonization of third parties by not necessarily Republicans, but Democrats. Because remember, nobody ever says anything about the libertarians cost a Democratic candidate to lose an election, but it's always some other third party, non-right-wing kind of third party that they blame, but they never blame the third party libertarians, which is a right-wing kind of party. and in this conversation, people have been bringing up the idea of a united front among these third party candidates. Now, I have my ideas about that, but I'm wondering what you think about that, Richard, considering that the PSL candidates are so strong and so consistent on people and human rights issues, and some of these other candidates, like who usually go by initials, not so much. Do we want to have a united front with them? I'm not sure, but I'm wondering what you think about that.
Well, I think for any of the progressive candidates, people should, as I said, what I believe are the best candidates. If people vote for other progressive candidates, that's better than voting for either Biden or for Trump. But the big problem, the way the election system is set up in the United States is so reactionary and so backward and so biased toward, really keeping any real alternatives out of serious consideration. There's 51 separate procedures. The 50 states and District of Columbia all have their own independent and often very complicated method for being able to qualify to be on the ballot to run for president, even though it's a federal office. Everybody's is voting for that same office, but the part of the reactionary character of politics in the United States of electoral politics is that there's this reality that you have to qualify in each state differently, and so that also impacts on having a united front. It impacts, on having what the impact is that the third party socialist or other progressive candidates can have.
Yeah, and I also appreciate the De La Cruz Garcia ticket because they are the only ticket that has stood unequivocally with the Palestinian resistance from the very beginning, and I stress the word unequivocally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a reason why we see the popularity of this ticket, even though, like a lot of alternative parties, they don't have nearly the money or resources or the platform of the Democrat and Republican Party, the two ruling parties, even though they don't have access to that. What they have is a program that actually speaks to people's needs in a concrete, material way, and in a way that we literally never see with the two ruling parties. I always like to point out that, anytime that someone runs for president, they have a platform, right? They have this set of policies that they claim they're going to enact once in power. And then in the US, there's a big deal that's made out of the first 100 days of a presidency, even though there's nothing particularly special about that time period. I think that was really just PR. But there's no mechanism to actually hold these people accountable to their platform when they get in office, which means that they can literally just lie to the public, and they often do, just to garner support, only to get in office and do whatever it is that they feel. And not only is there no mechanism to hold them accountable to their platform, there also is no mechanism to recall leadership in this country if they are unsatisfactory. Yet, this country tells the entire world that it has the most thoroughgoing democracy. And so what I think is being revealed, not only because of the political tensions inside the U.S., not only because of Gaza, not only because of all these different issues, I think that, frankly, the lie of American democracy is becoming exposed more and more. I think more and more people are sort of losing faith and perhaps increasing in their apathy towards this system. But whenever I, talk about things like this, I always want to point out, even though people are developing a consciousness around these things, consciousness doesn't organize itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a task for organizers to understand the moment and to be about the business of reaching out to the masses of people who are being ignored by these ruling class parties, and to try to bring them in to build this people's movement. And I know that the De La Cruz and Garcia ticket is doing just that, because they are organizers when they're not running for president and vice president. You know what I mean? And so it seems that after centuries of a political system that was literally designed to benefit the wealthy few, and of course the system's still very much in place, but it just seems like that mask of legitimacy that U.S. politics has seems to be slipping more and more. But how do you see it, Richard?
You know, definitely. I mean, it takes millions. If you want to qualify for a third party to get on the ballot, it takes millions of dollars to do that. There's no question about that. And you have, like I said, you have this ridiculous system of 51 separate procedures for how to qualify to run for president. But I also think this is that, you know, because the government, I mean, I don't know, do the Democrats even talk about a program anymore, or the Republicans? I see very little of that, and they're not beholden to any program if it even still exists. But because of the disarray of the government, because of its inability to meet the needs of millions, tens of millions of people here, while it carries out a war policy, a global war policy, we have more and more people who are becoming disenchanted. But the disenchantment, and this has already happened, is one that is a polarized disenchantment.
Mm.
In other words, that, you know, Trump has his demagogy to appeal to a lot of people who he hates. He can't stand them. I mean, he has no interest in the lives and the needs of poor people, of working people. He's a racist, anti-immigrant, he's sexist, all of the things that we can say about him. But because of the disenchantment with the government as a whole, we have a lot of people going in the direction of supporting Trump. We can't deny it. And it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. And the same goes for Biden. I mean, Biden's whole history, as I think Jackie mentioned earlier, is one where he was best friends with the worst racist when he was in the Senate early. He's been a representative of the credit card state of Delaware. He's a warmonger, all of these different kinds of things. And now, you know, when people go out and they chant Genocide Joe, I don't think it's very likely that after you call someone a genocide, committing genocide, that you're going to then vote for them. So there's this polarization that's going on in the country. Our side needs to do more to win over working class people who are being misled by Trump's demagogy and his reactionary politics. But I think we're in the middle of a big struggle. I think the polarization is also a necessary prelude to a new kind of revolutionary politics in the United States.
I think that's
I think that's the case. And you know, when you sort of lay out what it is that actually has to be done at this juncture, you were saying that our people with our politics, the progressive side, the socialist side, all of these sorts of things, that we really have to get in gear. We've been doing a lot, but we will have to, I think, dial up our efforts. Oh, sorry about that. We're in the city. We'll have to dial up our efforts to bring in more working class people who, of course, are having their resources robbed from them in order to prop up this genocide and so many other things. It isn't just Israel specifically where our resources go. They also go to maintain Washington's 800 some odd military bases and military installations and things like that. And so, you know, this is what Dr. Martin Luther King was telling us about way back in 1968. I mean, the fact that war constitutes an act of theft against the poor. And it sort of shows the real motivation of the imperialist ruling class, when they're taking this money, they're very knowingly taking this money away from things that would actually benefit humanity just for war, death, and genocide, and all to protect the system itself. And so as that same imperialist system is in decline and conditions for the masses of folks getting worse, this creates, I think, an opportunity to help build the movement that will be the solution for those issues. But we're going to leave it there for today and this week here on Darker Than Blue on WPFW 89.3 in Washington, D.C. I want to thank Richard Becker so much for joining us today. Stay tuned for news and views with Garland Nixon, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Peace, folks. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, y'all. Hey. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on Lukman Nation. Hope you enjoyed Darker Than Blue with Richard Becker. Yeah, we've been wanting to have him on, one of the Beckers on for a couple of weeks, but, because Answer and PSL have been doing a lot of work, a lot of organizing and all that kind of stuff. They've been really hard to nail down, but we're glad that we were able to get them. And we're still trying to get those two Congolese brothers back on the show, but their schedules are really crazy, but we are still trying. We are still getting them. I'm in touch with Maurice Carney to get them on the show because I really want to have them come on here and talk about Congo, because people are always like, well, y'all don't ever talk about Congo. We talk about Congo a lot, but somehow some people are never here when we do. So I didn't have any bonus anything prepared for today, but I know that, I owe you some bonus content. So look, I guess today can be an ask me whatever you want kind of day. So for what, an hour and 3 minutes, you can ask me the questions, things that you want to know. I'll try to answer if I can. Drop your questions in the chat. I'm trying not to do a whole lot of heavy thinking because I'm tired and this is not a great week. This is actually tomorrow is the anniversary of Abdus's death. And I'm never good on that day. I'm not good really today. It's been a bad May. May is a terrible month for me because, Mother's Day, my mom's birthday, my grandmother passed. Abdus's birthday is in May. And so is Brewski's. Brewski's birthday is actually in June. Brewski's birthday is June 10th. So yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of stuff, but if you got questions that you want an answer for, I will answer your questions as much as I can. So let's see. Let's see. Lukman Nation. Oh, Lukman Nation, when are we going to have another holy roller meeting with our people's prophetess? Also, any liberation theology guests coming soon? That's a great question. I am going to have regular guests on my shows to talk about spiritual kind of issues. Maybe not every month, but I am going to have guests to talk about these issues because, it's fascinating to me to examine different faiths and where they fit into liberation struggles. And as much as I know that's not everybody's thing, I don't do it for everybody who is not their thing. If it's not their thing, I don't do it for them. I do it for people who are interested in it. And if you're not interested in it, that's cool. I don't have a problem with it. That's fine. I am interested in it, and I hope that some people are interested in it. So yes, Quaker anarchist, I am going to have some more of those. I'm still just kind of getting used to moving around a little bit more, because I really had to take stock of everything I've been through in the past few years. And it's a lot more than I think I ever really paid really a lot of attention to So that explains why I'm still very tired. I'm still, not completely on my game like I'm used to being. And that's because I'm still healing. And I probably will be for like another year or so. So let's see. Okay. So that's the answer to that question. Yes, there will be more. They are coming. So please stay tuned. John Blaze 42. Why aren't we live on BPM at the moment? I think we still can't do live streams on BPM. I think the individual hosts. I don't understand what the entire problem is. I know that we can't monetize, but because of certain issues, we have limited access to some parts of the platform. That's the best I can explain it. That will be resolved, I think, at the end of this month. I think everything will go back to normal at the end of this month, but that is a temporary issue. And I didn't realize that it was actually happening. And I'm not sure if it's just my show or all the shows, but it's a temporary thing, and we will work it out soon. And it could be just my show, and I might have just missed adding it, but I don't think I did. But anyway, that's what it is. It's a temporary thing. Okay, let's see. What else do we got? I hope that helped. It will be resolved, John Blaze, though. It's not a permanent thing, not at all. Okay, next question. Gemon 93, how was the Red Line rally? I heard some folks online disparaging the rally. I wasn't able to go, but can you speak to the objectives of it? And do you think it was successful? I'm really interested to hear what the disparagement was, but I felt like it was successful. Demonstrations and rallies, success or failure is a weird kind of, I don't know that I would look at a rally as being a failure if people showed up in sufficient numbers and participated and made the statements that they intended to make, right? And I feel like in the Answer Coalition's stated goals of being the red line around the White House, since the White House yanked its own red line back, saying that, bombing Rafah would be, crossing the red line, and then Israel did it, and Biden did nothing. Well, Answer's response was that the people's red line does not change. Hands off Gaza, hands off Rafah, hands off the West Bank, hands off Palestine. So in that regard, I think it was a successful rally. I didn't get a chance to see the actual red line around the White House because I still can't walk that far. I cannot walk around the White House like I used to, without having to sit down and rest. But they were out there. They did it. They absolutely, because I've seen the pictures and from many, many points around the White House, and people surrounded the White House with a big old red banner. And a lot of BAP folks we came out, we supported, we spoke. Rafiki Morris spoke. And I think they did it. I think if 20 people had showed up, I don't think I would have called it a failure then, but it would have been one of those things of maybe protest burnout fatigue, which is interesting because I'm not seeing that in this moment. I'm not seeing that protest fatigue that, we know that happens. People are like, oh my God, not another protest, Jesus Christ. Well, when a genocide is going on, it's kind of hard to be tired of trying to stop a genocide, right? So I don't see a lot of the protest fatigue going on. I also see among the Palestinian youth and the college students across the country and truly around the world, I also see them being incredibly successful at political education and making connections between the struggle of Palestinian people and the struggle of people in Congo and Haiti. And there are Palestinian kids and white kids on college campuses who are talking about Haiti and Congo in the context of their connection to Palestine. They're talking about Cop City. They are talking about militarized policing. They're talking about how all of these things that affect us are connected to them so that they are connected to us. So people are talking kind of greasy when, oh, y'all don't talk about this, that, and the third. Who are you talking to? Because the people I am talking to, the people we are surrounded with, that's all they're talking about. All they're talking about is everybody's struggles and doing a really great job of connecting those struggles. So I do think, for whatever criticism people have of Answer and PSL, and I understand there's a lot of criticism. I'm not going to sit here and act like there's not. I don't have any insight into any of that. So don't ask me, because I do not know. I don't make it my business to get in other organizations' business if they're not causing problems. You understand what I'm saying? I've heard the things. I just don't have any insight on them. So don't ask me about it. But I think PSL is very effective at what they do, because I think they've been around a long time. They've got resources, right? Because you can't pull off that kind of stuff without resources. Richard Becker just said it. It costs money. It costs money to run as a third-party candidate. It costs money to put on conferences like they just did in Detroit in 2 months. It costs money to put on these repeated demonstrations that they're doing and doing really well every 2 months or so. So that they have resources that a lot of other organizations don't have. And that's just the reality of it. But they are consistent. When Answer and PSL, when they say they are anti-imperialist and anti-war and wanting to end racism, and they mean it. They mean it. So I think the rally was successful. It was creative. I gotta admit, when I heard that that's what they were going to do, I was like, I don't know if they're going to pull it off, but they did. I think they did, and it was pretty good. So that's my answer to the. Let me see. You said you asked something else. Let me go back to your comment and make sure. The objectives. I do think they met their objectives. Everybody on the stage who spoke, and this is something that we do. Let me just give you a little peek into what we do in that. Because a lot of people think that, like, when we speak in public, that we are just coming off the dome. We're out there chilling, hanging out with people, and then all of a sudden they call our name and then we spring into action, right? That's not that's not how that works. No. We need to know when we are asked to speak at an event, and it doesn't matter what the event is. What we do is we get together and we decide who's the best person to speak, who's available, who can do it, and who do we trust to say what needs to be said. That might be somebody who is a veteran, like me, Rafiki, Erica, Ajamu, folks like that, Netfa, folks like that. But we are also building up people in our formations to do this so that everybody speaks for BAP, so as many people as possible can speak for BAP. So before any of these events ever happen, we make sure that we have people in our organizations taking small roles doing speaking in public events. Like, I will put people on a team and have them do a teach-in and have them conduct the teach-in. I'm just there. Right? I'm the coordinator for the Mid-Atlantic region. I'm supposed to be coordinating all of the activity in the Mid-Atlantic region in 5 states. So I'm like, y'all gonna do some work. So here, we need to do these teach-ins. Let's get a political education team, people who do the research, and people who will do the presentation. We have people who have to do the graphics. We have people who have to do the research. We have people who have to do the timing of the slides and answering questions in the chat, and that when it's virtual. But when it's in person, which is what we did last month at Sankofa Books here in Washington, D.C., Books and Video, we have people who are there with the sign-in sheets. We have people passing the mic. We have people speaking to the slides, and we have a team of people speaking to the slides, so it's not just one person. And what they don't know, because I don't tell them, is that I am training them to speak publicly on behalf of BAP. What I found is that when you tell people that that's what you're doing, you're training them to speak, then they get extra nervous. They get extra nervous because you start to think, oh my God, I'm representing my org that I love and I respect and all this people. And what if I screw up? And what if I forget? And what if? I don't want to give people that kind of anxiety. I just tell people, hey, I think it's time for you to be on the PE team and to present these slides. I think it's time for you to participate in the orientation and do the icebreakers. I think it's time for you to open up your mouth and speak in front of this formation. That's what I do. And I know that's what Ricky does. And I know that's what Rafiki does too. And this is how we train people up to be the next bunch of speakers for BAP. So when we get an invitation to speak, we will get together and we'll find out who's the best person to fill that role. Because a lot of these events are in DC, it usually does come down to me, Erica, or Rafiki, or some other people in the Mid-Atlantic region, because it's right here in DC, right? So then what we do is we look at the material for the event to see what the statement is, what their demands are, what they intend to say. And then we craft our message around what their message is. But our message is clearly, BAP anti-imperialism across all of the sectors. We never don't say that. But we also make sure that we hit on the points that the organization that we are speaking at is making in their events. So when you see one of us speak in these events, we have had several conversations with our comrades about who's going to do it and what they're going to say. None of us goes into this cold. We used to when BAP first, hit the ground running. Yeah, Ajamu Baraka, bless his heart. He is my dear, dear brother. I mean this. I really mean this. But he would shove us out there like he was pushing a dog off the sofa. He was just like, go speak. There you go. And we'd stumble around and we'd make mistakes and you'd stand in there going, and we would come back, we would debrief, and we would be criticized in a comradely way, and we would really be guided and shaped and molded about how to speak publicly by the people who started this formation. So, when you see us out there with a mic in our hand, trust me, it's not like celebrity time in BAP for us. No, that's very serious work, and we take it very, very seriously. So this is why you will only see a certain group of people speaking right now. But as the months go on, you'll see more people representing BAP in front of the mic, because we are building more people up to speak to our people, because we all have to do it in one way or another. So that's just a little inside information for y'all. I see some more questions. I'm going to go up and try to grab them all. Hold on. Let's see. I got that one. Prester John asked, does Sputnik Radio have a pro-Palestinian host on their platform? I couldn't tell you what Sputnik has on their platform anymore because I'm not on Sputnik anymore. We were fired, remember? I honestly do not know what's on Sputnik anymore. I know that I think Political Misfits is still on. Dr. Leon is still on, Garland is still there, and as far as and they are pro-Palestinian, so I guess they are there. But if the question is, has anybody replaced our show, that can't be done. No. and I say that with all of the seriousness in my heart. You cannot replace by any means necessary. No. So I wouldn't expect there to be a replacement for, yeah. Okay. Chitimacha asks, any take on the Russian submarine reported to be in Cuban waters? I do have a take on that, and I like it. I likes it. Look, not only is multipolarity advancing still at a pretty steady clip, but the countries that have been in opposition to U.S. imperialism have I see them, this is just from my perspective, from what I see things happening in the past couple of years and on it, but I do see them being a lot less reticent or hesitant to work together openly for fear of retribution from the US. So I could be reading this wrong, but I really do believe that this is not an accident. It wasn't like, Russians were hanging out in their submarine, took a wrong turn. Somebody put the wrong coordinates in, took a wrong turn, and they ended up in Cuba. And no. This, I believe, is a part of a future agreement between the two countries. I cannot speculate what kind of agreement it is. I can guess, since Russia sent a submarine, maybe a military agreement. I'm just guessing here, but I don't think it was a mistake. I think what we are seeing is greater cooperation in some aspect that I'm not sure that we're clear on yet between Russia and Cuba. And I don't think that more open agreements between Cuba and China and Russia and China and a whole bunch of other countries are not forthcoming. I think they are. And I think that, and this is part of this is just me being really hopeful and wishing that this is what it is. But that's how I see it. And I'm hoping that I'm right. So let's keep our fingers crossed, and we'll keep watching, because it's very, very interesting. Thank you, David. I appreciate you so much. Thank you very, very much. Okay, we're gonna do that. Okay. Oh boy. Let's see. Let me see what else you guys have said. Oh wow. Craig Bardo, the formation of the BAP Nashville Citywide Alliance is almost done. We're doing some good things already. Don't let me shout. Don't make me shout. When are you coming to organize with us in Nashville? Brother, I will be there as soon as I can. I am there as soon as I can. Thank you so much for the invitation. We're going to pile up. We're going to pile up the Luke Mobile, and we're going to come down there, and we will rock with y'all. Yes, we will come down. Please make sure you keep in touch with me to remind me. I have to actually cancel my planned trip to Nicaragua, because guess what? I'm not healed enough to go. And I was mature enough to make the decision myself this time. So I cannot promise you that we'll be there this summer, but I can tell you that I will be there before the end of the year. All right. I can tell you, I can promise you that much. All right. So thank you so much for that. Y'all don't understand how much I love organizing. You don't, and it is something that I cannot quite explain. It's like breathing, like seeing people get it. That is a rush for me. Like when I was competing, when I was a power lifter, there is nothing like that adrenaline rush. There is nothing. For those of you who have done sports and you've competed and you understand what I'm talking about. That adrenaline rush, you get addicted to that. And there has been nothing that I have experienced, that I've done in my life, that gave me anything close to that kind of feeling, except for conducting political education in front of people and engaging with people and having people get it. That is the closest thing to that powerlifting adrenaline rush that I got. Because for me, this means the end of our oppression as we know it. The more people who get this, the closer we are to liberation. Because the more people who get it, the more people who will realize, well, wait a minute, this isn't the way things should be. What should I do? And we're right here. Well, you can do this. You can organize. You can help us organize your block. And then another person can help us organize their block. And we go block by block. We go door by door, block by block, city by city. That's how we organize. Yeah, it takes a while. It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But to see it happen in real time, to see your efforts pay off with 1 or 2 people. And sometimes that's really all it is. It's 1 or 2 people. You talk to 100, 1 or 2 people are going to get it. That's just how it is. 10, you talk to 100 people, 10 people are going to show up at your meeting. That's what you have to do to get 10 people in your meeting. Talk to 100 people. But to watch those 10 people show up, there's nothing like that. There is nothing like that. That feeling gives me hope. That's what it is. Because every other day in this capitalist hellscape, we are just trying to survive. And that is fucking annoying. And it's depressing. And who can enjoy life knowing that every day you are just getting up trying to survive? But being given the hope that this will change, and every time we have an event and people show up wanting to learn, hungry for information, asking questions, and sometimes the questions are interesting. Sometimes people's opinions are still backward. That's okay. I thought I had backward thoughts at one time too. So did y'all. We all did. But that's why political education is important, because that's how we help relieve our people of that backward thinking. And that's where the hope comes from. So that's why organization is so precious to me, because organization probably saved my life. Really saved me from coping with this stress in another way that might not have been so healthy. So that's my personal individualistic reason for loving organization. So, all right, let me go on to the next thing. John Blaze, we love you, Lukeman. Thank you. I love you too. But a certain person was talking greasy on the show. I'm sure. And I'm going to say this. It is never my intention to disrespect people. Right? I don't find a need to do it. I can dislike people, right? But I'm really weird in that I don't have to disrespect people just because I don't like you or just because I don't agree with you. I don't find a need to do it. And I certainly don't find a need to like personalize things. So I'm not going to do that. There are disagreements. There are differences of perspectives on things that happened. And I'm sick of it. There it is. I was ready to be done with it before that other thing. And I want to be done with it because this is a drain on my life. It is extremely stressful. I feel like I'm targeted. But in the grand scheme of everything that I have going on in my life, how important is this? Not. It's frustrating, it's annoying, it's a little hurtful. Yeah, but so I appreciate the support. I really, really do. But I can only be me. I can only do what I know to do, what I've been doing, what I'm comfortable with doing, and what you all like for me to do, really. Anything outside of that, when I do things that are not principled, when I do things that are not kind, because I'm human, I make mistakes. I have very human moments of frustration. And that one night I did have a very human moment of frustration. And I apologize for that repeatedly. That's all I can do. That's all I can do because I'm 56 years old and I'm really not gonna, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it is that is desired from me. But whatever it is, nobody's getting it because I've apologized. And if that's not enough, I don't know what people want. And because I don't know what people want, whatever it is they're after is none of my business because it don't have nothing to do with me. It's about them. And me, what I do, this is about me. This is about me and Abdus and what we started. This is about us. This is about you. Whatever anybody else has to say about me, what I do, what I say, what you want me to do about that? I can't. Okay. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you, John, for the support. I do. I really do. And that honestly is all I am ever going to say about that ever again. So there. Okay. Oh yeah, it is. You can it's even though they have kind of, they've made it so you can't drive down Pennsylvania Avenue past the White House yet like you used to many years ago before they closed the street off, and then you have that walkway in front of you can still, it's a long way. It's like more than a mile all the way around. But yeah, it's possible to do. It just takes a little effort and a lot of people. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Let's go down. Let's go down. What is okay? Hey, 2F, how you doing? What is the best piece of advice I have for being an organizer or activist? Well, I think I just gave it to you. And let me just say that I see organizers and activists differently. Not that one is better or worse than the other. They just serve different roles, I think. Activists usually are responding to an issue, and they are championing an issue, and all of their work surrounds that one issue. And that's not a bad thing. But they're really not organizing to they're organizing to raise awareness on this one issue, which is fine. They're not organizing to build an organization for the people to fill and grow, and confront the foundational problems of the society, meaning capitalism, imperialism, patriarchy, homophobia, all of those things, right? Organization is using political education to bring a level of consciousness to the people so that they will want to get involved in mass organization, so that they will want to learn more and use the information that they have now that they're conscious to find out how they can help change this system. I think that's how I see organizing and activism. Not one better than I don't see activism as bad. It's just a different thing. And plenty of activists eventually do get into organization, but some don't, right? So outside of kind of understanding the difference between organization and activism, the best advice anybody gave me for organizing was when I keep mispronouncing his name, Ajamu Baraka told me, and he told me this after Abdus died too. And I was telling him when I visited him in Colombia, because they told me to come down and just hang out and just, relax. And I'm going to do that again this year, going to hang out there with Ajamu and Anthony Rogers Wright and some other fantastic people in Colombia and just get myself centered again. He told me after I told him that, I don't know if I can do this anymore without him. And I really was feeling like I can't do this without Abdus, because this was our thing. This was really, organizing was our thing, right? And I just felt like I couldn't do it without him. And Ajamu told me that, first of all, if I stopped, that Abdus would be mad at me. Like he would come from the ancestral realm and beat my ass if I stopped. But then he said something that I thought was just so incredibly important. He said, you understand, organizing is not how much you do. Organizing is that you do it. It's not how much you do. And see, this is a big thing with me. So I'm, when I talk to you guys, when you ask me questions, when I tell you what I think, I'm really telling you what's going on in my head. I tell you as much as I can without like giving you all of my personal business, because I don't think it's right for me to sit here and be in a position where I'm talking about politics to you, but when it comes to like issues of a personal matter, then all of a sudden I clam up and I can't say anything about it because, oh, it's my personal business. We're all going through some shit. All of us, every single one of us. I know that for a fact. Everybody doesn't have to have been experiencing the, the sudden death of a spouse or a partner, losing a job, or it doesn't have to be that serious. I wouldn't wish what has happened to me over the past 3 years on my worst enemy. I don't dislike anybody this much to have gone through what I went through. No. But I really was feeling really useless. I was feeling really like I can't even function without him because it was just so seamless with us. It was so effortless and it was beautiful. And I just felt like I couldn't do it. And Ajamu was just, he said, Jackie, he said, but sister, it's not how much you do. It's that you do it. That's it. You put one foot in front of the other and that's it. That is what we need you to do. We just need you to put one foot in front of the other. We don't need you to operate at any particular level. No, we just need you to stay connected. And we will carry you until you can walk. And we'll walk beside you until you can run again. This is what this man told me. So that I think is important to tell people when we're talking about organizing. Because people are always saying, I don't know if I can do this, that, and the third. Well, we don't know if you can do it either. That's why we want to get you in so we can find out where you fit, because that's the great thing about organizing. There is a place for everybody. There's something for everybody to do. We need note takers. We need people to make copies. Dear God, we need people to make copies. We need people to come and help hand out flyers, to do outreach. We need people to handle food for meetings. We need people to handle childcare for meetings. We need people to man the phones, to do phone tree activities, to contact our members. We need people to edit documents. Come on, we need people to do graphics. We need people just to carry shit from place to place. We need people to help Miss Jackie unpack her damn car when she gets to the event. We need people to help Miss Jackie pack the car back up. There's something for everybody in organization. So the important thing is just to do it, to get involved in an organization, not so much to find how far you can go or how much you can contribute or how much you can do. Get your foot in the door and do something. That is the most important thing to do in organizing, I think. So hope that helps. Let me see what else y'all got. Let me see what else you got. And look, I really appreciate the background people. I really do, because as much as I didn't like being in the forefront, first Abdus pushes me out in the forefront, and then Ajamu Baraka pushes me out in the forefront. And I'm just like, okay, obviously people see something here that I don't, and I don't even like that they see it, but it is what it is. And I trust them enough that they will support me if they push me out here. And they do. And they do. So we don't leave people alone, to go do stuff. That's crazy. That's how people get hurt. That's how people get disillusioned in organization. We don't do that. This is not a solo journey for any of us, right? We are lockstep, arm in arm, chest to chest, shoulder to shoulder. This is how we do it. There is no other way to organize but to be connected to the people you're organized with. And it's kind of hard to do that when, some of the people you're organizing with are assholes. But that just kind of comes with it, because people are people and you have to deal with them. And you can struggle with some of those people and get some solid comrades out of the most problematic people who come in at first. Sometimes, and then sometimes you can't. That's just dealing with people. But in the end, it's the results. It's the people coming into the organization. It's the heightened consciousness. It's the expanded consciousness. It's watching other people's shows and hearing other people repeat your talking points. That's when you know you're making an impact. And when you get named by the right-wing sources who say that you're a troublemaker and a traitor, that's when you know you're doing a good job. Yeah. All right. So let me see what else y'all got. Let me see what's going on. Quaker Atticus, I'm giving the exact storyline of the Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. It is a great movie, and I realized, like, oh man, that I think that is about that movie. But look, hey, if it can happen in real life, that would be fantastic. Let's see, what other questions do you all have? Yes, I am Jackie, the powerlifting punk fan. I am all that and a whole little bag of contradictions in my little 5'1" frame. Oh, this is a great question. I love this one. What drew me to powerlifting? Oh my God. Woo! Story time. So, I needed to lose weight because and this was 20 years ago, has to be 20 years ago. I got married in 2013. My last competition was in 2011. Yeah. And I competed for 3-4 years. So I didn't start powerlifting until I was 45. I needed to lose weight. And my doctor told me, okay, if you don't lose weight, you are eventually going to die because your blood pressure is not doing well. So you'll die early if you don't lose weight. That's just it. So that scared me enough. So I joined a gym, and they had 3 sections to the gym. The first section was the cardio equipment. The middle section was the heavyweight room, the free weight room, which is where all the plated weights are in the big machines. The third section was like a boxing ring kind of thing that they weren't really using. And when I started going to the gym just to lose weight so I wouldn't die early, right? I hired a personal trainer who we had a little entanglement with. It wasn't an entanglement because he was married. That's no. He wasn't married. He liked me, but he acted as if he didn't know how to express that he liked me. And I hate that shit. I hate it. I'm 45. We're grown. Why is this hard? I'm sitting right here. You're like standing over me, showing me how to use this machine. How hard is it to? And so I know that he likes me, and he is just. So we're having all of these, theoretical conversations about what would happen if we dated, and I'm just getting more and more frustrated with the whole thing. But he is teaching me how to lift weights at the same time, right? So he teaches me how to lift weights, and I eventually just become so annoyed with him and his wishy-washy back and forth. I like you. I want to date you. I don't. I'm not sure. I don't know what to do. I was like, you know what? You either shit or get off the pot. I'm sorry. You either make up your mind. Do you want to go out with me or do you not? Because if you don't, I'm making the decision for you, and I'm firing you, and I don't need your help anymore because I think I can figure out how to lift weights. So I did. I fired him, and I was in there lifting weights by myself, and I was really having a good time. And I didn't even know that I liked lifting weights until I just started doing it myself with the instruction that he gave me. His name was Charles. So I'm in there lifting weights myself, and he was still a trainer, and he would come by every once in a while. How you doing? You need anything? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. And I'm still pissed off because he couldn't figure out how to ask me out. Really, really weird. So I'm just, so then I start lifting weights just by myself. And I would go to the gym. I'm in the gym 4 days a week by myself, just lifting weights, having the best time of my life. And I didn't even know there was a powerlifting team at the gym. I didn't know anything about powerlifting. I did not know what powerlifting was. Sorry, there's a deer out back. Sir? Hey, deer's fine. Thank you. So the powerlifting team were watching me. I did not know they were watching me. They were watching me. And so one of the team members one day comes over to me, gorgeous brother. Listen. Gorgeous. You understand? I am not the type of person, I've never been the type of person to go to the gym and look at people, but I'm sorry. When a man is gorgeous, I'm ogling. I'm going to ogle. I'm sorry. This man was gorgeous. Ron, gorgeous, came up to me, and I was like, what did I do? What did I do to deserve this today? Lord Jesus, thank you. But that wasn't what he came over for. He came over and he said, yeah, I see you, working out by yourself in here. You come in here, you don't talk to nobody. You don't cause no problems. You don't socialize none. I see you. You just come in here, you doing your thing. This really was how he talked. Real DC OG kind of, yeah. So I'm like, yeah, I just really like lifting weights. I learned how to do it from a trainer and I found out I kind of like it. And he's like, yeah, I see you pushing a lot of weight. And I didn't think I was just, and I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, you're doing really good. He's like, your form is really great. Your form is perfect. And he said, so, and I'm thinking he's hitting on me now, right? Because he's talking about my form now. So of course he's looked at the rest of my body and I'm like, oh, okay, he likes my form. But no, that wasn't it. So he said, so what do you know about powerlifting? And I'm like, what is that? So he said, okay, so I'm a part of a team. And so he pointed to like 5 other men in the middle section, in the free weight section. And they're all standing there waving at me. And I'm like, this is very weird. But he's like, yeah, I'm a part of a team. We're a powerlifting team here. We train here and we compete. And we think you can compete. And I'm like, compete at what? Because I still don't know what powerlifting is. And he's like, you can be a powerlifter. I'm like, what is that? And I'm still waiting for him to ask me out. And it doesn't come. So I know that's exactly how I felt. Oh, so this is exactly what life with this dog is like. It's every day. Hey, leave the deer alone. So basically he convinces me to let them train me 2 Saturdays in a row. And the training sessions for the team are like 4 hours long on a Saturday, 2 hours on weeknights, 4 hours on Saturday, 6 hours prior to a competition. So he's like, let us train you. We'll train you on the bench press first. Let us train you. And if you like it, then we'll train you how to compete. We'll train you to compete. If you don't like it, you're just going about your business. And, it's cool. I'm like, what? All right, I guess that's all right. Let's see what happens. And that's how I got into powerlifting. And I did not know that I was particularly strong. I'm still not entirely sure that I am, but I'm good at training. I like training. I really like training. I'm not sure that I can train at the level that I used to now, but I'm going to go back to lifting some weights very soon. But that's what got me into powerlifting. And I did everything they told me to do. I took the supplements they told me to take. And I researched the supplements and I eliminated the ones that I knew were bad for me, took the stuff to my doctor and talked to him. And the next thing I know, you train bench pressing with the bar, with the barbell because the barbell is 45 pounds. Most people haven't lifted 45 pounds of anything. So you train perfecting your form with the barbell, and you do that for about a month. And then you add 5 pounds, and then you add 5 pounds, and then you add 10 pounds, and then 10 pounds, and then 10 pounds. And then the next thing I know, I'm bench pressing 180 pounds. That was my highest bench press in competition. Then they trained me in the deadlift, and the deadlift is my absolute favorite. I love deadlift. If you want to do a full body exercise with a little bit of time and a lot of impact, deadlift. You honestly, if you don't want to, you don't have to do anything else. You really don't. People who exercise and do, see, now I'm getting all excited and getting all into the weeds and the thing. Yeah. So, so if you really just want to tighten up, improve your tone, build muscle, slim down, burn some fat, you only need to deadlift. Deadlift works every muscle, front and the back of your legs, your glutes, your lower back, your upper back, your trapezoids, delts, triceps, biceps, forearms, everything. It gives you a little bit of action on your sides. You only need to deadlift if you seriously want to get toned. Anything else you do, bench press, squat, it's great. It's fine. It's not going to hurt you. But deadlifting is the everyman, every muscle just about exercise that you can do in the gym. That is powerlifting. And so I guess somebody is letting off fireworks across the woods. And yeah, 4th of July is going to be unpleasant in this house with this dog. So yeah, so that's how I got into powerlifting, y'all. And I probably won't be powerlifting again anytime soon, but I will always lift weights, always. And I encourage women to pick the weights up, lift weights. Ladies, you will not get cut like a man. You will not, your muscles won't grow like men's muscles grow because they can't. They can't because you don't have enough testosterone for your muscles to grow like men to grow. This is not church. I don't need you. The hallelujah and everything I say. Dang it. So when women lift weights, we get more toned. Our muscles are leaner. They are thinner. There is a little bit of definition, but the definition is not bulk. The definition is sleekness and slenderness and definition in muscle. Your body, the shape of your body will change, right? Your waist will get narrower. You may not get rid of all of the belly fat, but it will be reduced and your muscles will become stronger. You will stand up straighter just because your muscles are stronger. All that kind of good stuff. You'll sleep better, all that kind of good stuff. Weightlifting is great for women. It is fantastic for women. And you don't need to take a bunch of supplements to do it. All you need is whey protein before and after your workouts and a lot of water. That's it. And just do it. Start off with the lowest weight that you can lift without straining. And then do that for a week. Throw 2.5 pounds on each end the next week and do the same thing again. And keep increasing your weight, 2.5 pounds, 5 pounds each week until you've reached your max lift. And your max lift, your personal record, is the highest weight you can clear successfully, even when it's hard. All right. That's what you do. And that will help you a lot. So that's how I got into powerlifting. I hope that answered your question and gave you a little bit of extra too. Oh, okay. So let's see. What's my thoughts on the growth of special economic zones across BRICS? I'm not very familiar with the special economic zones across BRICS, but I really believe in allowing countries to make deals with other countries or enter into agreements with other countries that are beneficial to them on the basis of their material conditions and what they want. That's, so if countries are agreeing to whatever these special economic zones are in the BRICS framework, then I am going to trust that these countries have negotiated their own best interests. That's what self-determination is. So short of knowing the specifics about special economic zones, which I honestly don't know much about, I just think that, generally, if people agree to these, whatever it is, then as long as it's in the best interest of the people, then they should do what they feel like is best for them. I'm in no position in the middle of the beating heart of the imperialist project to tell another country what they can and cannot do with their economic system. That's because we can't get this country to do anything for us with this economic system. So, I'm excited to see what other people can come up with. Let's see. Let's see. What other questions y'all got? Let me see. Let's see. I mean, copies, paper, a lot. Good. Ooh, thank you. The spreadsheets. I used to think I liked spreadsheets. Like I used to do formulas in spreadsheets. I shouldn't have said that because now they're gonna make me do formulas. Oh shit. Anyway, I used to love doing formulas in Excel. I hate spreadsheets now. Everything is organized on a spreadsheet. It's the easiest way to do it. It is the easiest way to put stuff down on paper. And for me, I don't know if I'm left-brained or right-brained, where I'm not necessarily creative, but I'm more analytical. But analysis for me is words, right? I can do a project plan, right? I can do that. Makes sense to me. Sometimes planning with a spreadsheet is like completely, it is the antithesis of logic to me, but it works. So I have to unlearn the way I'm used to doing things and learn a new way to use a tool that I'm used to using in another way. That's all a part of organizing too. It's learning how to do things in a new way that accommodates a capacity that you're not used to, right? Like we're used to planning birthday parties for family members, right? We're used to doing stuff on that kind of scale, like helping to plan the family reunion, right? We're not used to planning unless we have worked in events plannings. We were an event planner. We're not used to planning things on the scale that we do in organizing. A teach-in, an event at a bookstore for 80 people who we don't know, right? We're talking 80 strangers, not our relatives from out of town, right? So we're all in organization learning how to do things that we're familiar with, but learning how to do them in a different way and for a larger capacity than what we're used to. And a lot of us don't think we can do that. And then we get in here with all these people who are helping us along and we find out, oh my God, I can do this. Oh, this is not rocket science. It's not. It's a lot of work, but it's not rocket science. So, and we do try to make it fun in BAP. I admit that we do try to make it fun. See, I can't do jazzercise or the Zumba. I tried Zumba. Zumba was fun, but see, I have osteoarthritis in both these knees. And at this point, there's not a lot of dancing I can do that is not going to be painful. There's not a lot of walking I do that's not painful. So I can't do that. But yeah, I will sling some weight around with the metal blasting in my headphones just so I do not have to hear the man next to me who I can see out of the corner of my eye, but I can hear him next to me. Oh, sis, you need some help with them weights? Do I look like I need any help with these damn weights? I don't think I do. Anyway, let's see. What else y'all got? Excuse me. So sorry. The immunosuppressants I take, they of course help keep me from rejecting the kidney. So I have to take immunosuppressants every day, twice a day. And I will have to take these for the rest of my life. So what they do is they help me keep me from rejecting the kidney. But any other illness I have, because it suppresses my immune system, the other thing is just worse. So I have sinus issues. And when the weather changes, the sinuses it's really a mess. So the sinus drainage is just awful because of the immunosuppressant. So I have to take extra Claritin and shit. And it's a whole, just like it's a whole like balancing act all the time, all of the time. Like I can never be in a crowd of people and not wear a mask. Never. Because me getting the flu could put me in the hospital, let alone COVID. Right? So I don't want to hear any more slick talk, slick comments about masks and COVID. If y'all are cool with me catching somebody else's germs and dying, fantastic. But you can keep that mess to yourself. I'm so tired of having those conversations. Let's see. Okay, what else y'all got? How do I think the U.S. is going to respond to Russia? They're pushing hard for their Monroe Doctrine. I think all the U.S. has in regard to Russia or China at this point is sanctions. That's all they've got, because the U.S. is not in a position to fight a war on 3 fronts. 4 if you count China, 2. But okay, let's just keep it at 3. And it's just, so the U.S. is arming Ukraine to fight against to Russia, to try to destroy Russia. The U.S. is arming Israel to destroy the Palestinians, to steal the rest of their land. And then the U.S. is going to try to start some stuff with Russia. I don't think they are. I don't think they will. I don't think there is a military response to Russia that anybody in the U.S. Military is seriously considering. I don't think there is an adult in the room, in the White House and in the Pentagon, who is seriously considering a military response to anything Russia is doing. It'll be more sanctions, and it'll be more sanctions that don't do anything. And I think the same is true with Russia, with China. They will crack down. Biden will add some more sanctions to Cuba because of this situation with Russia. But that's what they have. I don't think they have a military response. Then again, I'd be foolish if I did not admit that these people are insane. So there is no way a logical human being can predict what a bunch of psychopaths are going to do. Right? So while my logical mind is saying that logical people, even as warmongering imperialist monsters as they are, even they understand they have no way to fight a hot war with Russia or China or anybody else. That does not mean that some of the psychos in office won't try. Right? That is the caveat that I always have to give. Because while I do believe that cooler heads will prevail in stopping any military response to Russia, I don't think that there will not be people in the room who will not be like, just bomb them. Let's just bomb them. Let's just bomb them. Anytime, who was it? Lindsey Graham, who said that Gaza needed to be nuked? Was that? I mean, so if they would say that about Gaza, of course they would say that about Russia. So yeah, that's what I think. Yes, they did. Thank you for reminding me of that. Thank you for reminding me of that, Jackson, because I forgot about that. People don't know anything about. People in the United States know nothing about other countries because we don't go anywhere, and we believe what this country's media says about other countries. So people never knew that there was a whole Patrice Lumumba University in Moscow for decades, and they changed the name after a while. I can't remember why they said they changed the name, but this year they restored Patrice Lumumba's name to the university, and it is Patrice Lumumba People's Friendship University. I forget the year that it was established. It was in the 60s, late 60s, I believe. But that was a really fantastic thing. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that, because I read that a couple of days ago, I thought, oh, that's a really, really wonderful thing. And that's one of the places when I can get around a little bit more. I really need to go to Russia. I need to go to China. I need to see all these places that are, full of anti-imperialism. I got to see it, got to feel it. Woo! All right, y'all, it is 7 o'clock. Do you know what that means? Black Myths. That's what that means. Go on and tune in to Two Black and the Crew as they run down the topics like they do, like nobody else does. I appreciate you hanging out with me here on the extra special edition of Lukman Nation. Hope you enjoyed Darker Than Blue. We'll see you next Friday with Darker Than Blue and Blackonomically Speaking with Dr. Linwood Tawheed. Until then, I will see you all later. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. As always, a luta continua. The struggle continues. But if we keep struggling, if we keep fighting, if we keep scrapping, folks, I promise you, Victoria acerta. Victory is certain. Peace, people.